Hello, this is Tarregor. This video is a Twitch stream, so it's going to look like a Twitch stream, and it's not edited. Welcome to my vision of World of Warcraft Classic Plus. The design direction of my vision of WoW Classic Plus is substantially different from that of retail WoW Circus Shadowlands and your private servers, Vanilla Plus and Turtle WoW. This is partially because it aims to fix Vanilla WoW's many problems first, flesh out and polish authority there second, and add new content third. This is part of a playlist of videos. Check this video's description for a link to the playlist. The document displayed is my vision of WoW Classic Plus, and the document's version number is version 1.5.16. All versions of the document are based upon patch 1.12.2 of World of Warcraft. If you just want to know about the general design direction of my vision of Classic Plus before you otherwise look into this, then watch the introduction video in this playlist, or review the document yourself and look at the list of major features. The link to the document is in my channel's About page. Nat and I does not have a team of people or however working with me to make an actual private server out of this. This is all pure design thus far, and it ain't done yet. Now, first off, as I had covered in other videos in this playlist, the spell cleave metagame is gone. Period. Poof. Vanished. In part because, I hard capped all abilities and buffs and items available to players that deal AoE damage or do AoE crowd control or AoE taunt. I nerfed them all to have a hard target cap of 6 targets per tick or spell cast, a la Thunderclap, a la Whirlwind, and a la War Stomp. So, for example, if you're casting Blizzard on 500 guys at once, if you're casting Blizzard and there's 500 guys within range, then it's only going to hit 6 of them per tick. Period. No questions asked. Unless one of them resists it, then it's going to hit less than 6 guys. Or there's less than 6 guys in range of it. Anyway. Yeah, that was part of expanding the spell cleave metagame for good. Without significantly fucking with large-scale PvP in a bad way. Now then. Second off, as I covered in other videos in this playlist, all items in the entire game that had an item level above 65 were squished down to an item level of 65, and all raids hardened in Upper Blackrock Spire, excluding world bosses, were turned into 40-mans, and they exclusively drop item level 65 epics with a tiny chance for select items that are required for legendary weapon quest chains. So there's only going to be one tier of raids, and it's going to be hard. On a related note, world bosses only drop item level 63 epics now. Note also that the PvP ranking system is being replaced with a new one, and that all rank-based PvP rewards are being nerfed to item level 65, that there will be more rewards, so rank 14 players can wear PvP epics in every slot but their shirt and, if I recall correctly, to Bard, and not just in several equipment slots like in Vanilla. That and Epic Battleground rewards are being nerfed to item level 63, All Epic Battleground rewards are being nerfed to item level 63. That's 65 minus 2. Note also that world buffs are being massively nerfed, and that buff stacking in general was heavily revised as well. Were massively nerfed, All that said, every class is going to have far less gear and buffs to scale with than they had in Vanilla, so keep all that in mind while you watch this video. Note also that all flasks were changed, that they will not do anything unless you're under the influence of a flask-enabling spell. Mages get to cast 2 of them. Each flask requires the player to be under the effects of a specific flask-enabling spell for the flask to have any effects at all upon the player. As you'll see according to the relevant spell descriptions as I go over them, these spells are intended to force players to only use flasks in certain scenarios, such as 40-man raids, in order to keep tryhardery on a leash. Now then, on to the mage agenda. What else do I want to do to mages? I generally want to make Ignite stacking not be overpowered without remarkably changing PvP. I want to fix exploits. Oh, by the way, I also changed the debuff limit to be capped at 255, but it'll share the limit with buffs. So buffs and debuffs will share the same limit of 255 per NPC, per creature. I don't want to say creature, per player or non-player character. I also want to fix various... So anyway, I want to make Ignite stacking not be overpowered without remarkably changing PvP. I want to fix exploits. I want to make Arcane Missile spam, be it as Deep Arcane, be a real thing for raids without breaking PvP. And I want to add something to this script. Also, I increased the debuff limit to 255, though it's shared with buffs. Save video scripts.txt. Okay, now to go back off scripts. The scripts are only for the introduction. I also want to make single target arcane raid damage and single target frost raid damage involving pushing of more than one button. I want to get rid of the spell cleave metagame once and for all, as I already partially went over. I want to cause making gold to not be a cakewalk for mages compared to every other class in the entire game, bar none. I want to discourage people from making a mage alt just to get easy gold, especially if the player otherwise hates the class. Players. I want to make no talent be useless when somebody else in your group has it. I want to make rating specs be better at PvP without being optimal PvP specs. I want to make PvP specs be better at rating without being optimal rating specs. I want to make no talent be useless in PvP. I want to make no essential rating talent be useless in solo play. Now then, moving on to the general changes to mages, not the talents, all the other stuff instead. For this subsection anyway. I'll also go over the talents in this video. But not yet. Mages will only grant one... here's a fly. Can I get it? Can I get it? Ah, got away. Okay, mages only gain one attack power per strength, seeing as how they do not have a good thematic reason to get more attack power per strength than hunters and rogues do. Mage pearls will not be able to be casted while in a battleground in order to prevent a mind control exploit. Mage portals in capital cities teleports may not be casted while in combat, and portals will immediately close if their caster enters combat in order to prevent exploits. People cannot enter mage portals while those people are in combat in order to prevent exploits. This is not superfluous, by the way. All polymorph effects will have a special limitation shared with each other. If a single target receives 3 polymorphs within a span of 10 seconds, then the target will be made immune to all polymorphs for 1 minute. This immunity does not dispel already existing polymorphs, however. This will serve to prevent lots and lots of griefing, especially on PvE and RP servers, and it will perhaps prevent certain raid mechanics from being cheese. However, it will enable mages to grief other mages by spam polymorphing an NPC so that the other mage can't polymorph it. But that's not as bad as a mage polymorph spamming a quest mob that somebody's trying to kill for hours and hours on end. On a PvE server where you can't do anything about it because you can't get flags. Anyway, moving on. The talents, Frost Warding and Improved Fire Ward, will never cause Fire or Frost Ward to reflect the spell that's already been reflected, nor will it cause them to reflect a spell that's casted by an enemy above your level, such as a raid boss, in order to prevent recursion exploits and astronomically unlikely server crashes. Well, recursion crashes. Oh, not recursion exploits, recursion crashes. Anyway, remove lesser curse will be... I'm not sure why I type exploits there. Remove lesser curse will be renamed to remove curse. Because the druid spell was renamed to something else, this is a better name, just remove curse. The druid spell was renamed to decurse. Anyway, Frostbolt, Space Damage, and Spell Damage scaling will both be multiplicatively reduced by 10% in ranks 4 through 11 in order to make room for a new spell, Frostball. At level 20, mages may learn a spell from mage trainers called Frost Power. This will cause you to gain a stack of an undispellable buff called Frost Power for 6 seconds. Every time you deal frost damage with a mage spell that is not Frostball, to a maximum of 10 stacks. Frost Power may be consumed by Frostball and to make the spell cast faster. At level 40, you can gain rank 2 Frost Power, which acts as rank 1, except you get an extra stack with each crit. Design note, if it wasn't undispellable, then it would work as a great spell fodder for Fire/Arcane Fire Mages, even if all 10 stacks could be removed by single dispellation effects. So the Frost Mage damage rotation is going to be Frostbolt until you get 3 or more stacks, and then you just cast Frostbolt to dump the stacks. Don't get too many stacks out, however, unless you accidentally go over 10 stacks and waste 1 of the stacks that way. And you're not going to know exactly when to cast Frostball until you know exactly how many stacks. Yeah, that's a terrible way to put it. Basically, getting an extra stack of Frost Power when you crit means that you don't always cast Frostball at the same time, so it's not completely automatic. So it's not a completely automatic rotation, so to speak. A new spell, Frostball. 7 ranks. Learned from mage trainers. Frost School. Costs however the fuck much mana. 4.5 second cast at max rank, well, after rank 1. 30-yard range. Conjures a ball of frost and launches it at the enemy, dealing X and Y frost damage, slow the target's movement speed, and slowing the target's movement speed by 40% for Z seconds. This spell will consume up to 3 stacks of frost power to reduce its cast time by half a second per stack. So at 3 stacks of frost power, it will have a 3-second cast time. Do note that one of the talents are being changed to. Do note that improved Frostball, or whatever the hell it's called, is being changed to also reduce the cast time of Frostball by the same amount. So if that talent in 3 stacks of frost power, it'll reduce the cast time to 2.5 seconds. Frost power is consumed at the end of the spell cast, not the beginning. So don't worry about canceling Frostball midway through the spell cast. You won't lose the stacks of frost power from that. Unless you would lose it by the spell just wearing off. By the stacks wearing off. That you still have to worry about. This spell will serve to get Frost Mages a second button to push and raise, as well as giving a much needed buff to Arcane Frost Mages to better compare to Arcane Fire Mages. According to this design document, anyway, not compared to vanilla. According to this Classic Plus, that is, not according to vanilla. Anyway, first spell specifics for rank are as follows. Rank 1, 400 to 120 damage in 10 seconds slow, 3.9 second cast, 100% spell damage coefficient, 105 mana, level 22. Rank 2, 167 to 201 damage in 10 seconds slow, 4.5 second cast. I said level 22. Remember to increase the level requirement of rank 1 of Frost Power to level 22. Because that's when you get rank 1. Anyway, back to Frostball. Yes, Frost Power comes into the end of the spellcast, not the beginning. You get a second button to push. Rank 1 does that. Rank 2, 167 to 201 damage in 10 seconds slow, 4.5 second cast, 100 spell damage coefficient, 160 mana, level 28. And rank 3, the slow goes up to 11 seconds, and so on so forth until rank 7, 649 to 778 base damage, and 12 seconds slow, 4.5 second cast, 100% spell damage coefficient, 445 mana, and requires level 60. Design note, this is kind of based off of the AQ book for Frostbolt, formerly AQ book. Now it dropped from probably Scalamancer or some other place. It dropped from somewhere else. Frostbolt 11. Dropped from the Lucky to Paladin, yep. I moved all the AQ books to what were formerly 5 and 10 man endgame. Now 10 to 20 man raids. Yeah, that's why there's such a big jump between rank 7's damage and rank 6's damage. It accounts for the AQ book, formerly AQ book. Now drops from Military Paladin. Moving on. You may not have more than one mana gem across your inventory and bank at a time in order to keep tryhardery on a leash. The casting of all portals will have a shared 15-minute cooldown in order to discourage people from just making mage alts in order to make 50 gold an hour by just standing around in capital cities and doing barely anything when everyone else without a mage can't get 25 gold per hour by sweating hard out in the world and actually fucking doing stuff. By the way, in this Classic Plus, it's going to be way the fuck harder to make gold out in the world by sweating than it will be in vanilla, where you can make like 100 gold per hour or more doing so. Probably. I forget how much exactly. But it's going to be a lot less than in vanilla. Anyway, speaking of which, it's mentioned elsewhere in the design document that level 55 Mage and Food Water were removed from the game, as was the relevant quest and tome. All Mage conjured food and water will furthermore grant 15% less health or mana than they had before, and to be less likely to be misinterpreted. All Mage conjured food and water will grant 15% less health and mana than they did before in order to make it harder to make money by sitting around in a capital city and doing barely anything, as well as to increase the value of items such as Morning Glory Dew and Works of Quails without making mage food / water be obsolete. Design note: this might be up to 10% less to make sure that it's not mage food and water is not obsolete, or nerf to 20% less to make sure that items such as Morning Glory Dew and Roasted Quails are not obsolete aside from feeding hunter pets. And some soloing stuff. Dampen and Amplify Magic will not affect managing if it did before, nor will the spells affect healing upon mechanical creatures. I'm pretty sure that first part was not the case in vanilla, but just in case. Daemon Magic will reduce magic damage taken by the greater of X or 15% to a maximum of 10X, and it will reduce healing taken by the greater of Y or 30% to a maximum of 10Y, whereas X is the value by which magic damage was reduced in vanilla, and Y is the value by which healing was reduced in vanilla. Designed as the caps of 10X/10Y outside of straw grasping serve only to get players to actually cast and learn the highest ranks of their spells, and similarly is so for Amplify Magic. Amplify Magic will be similarly changed. It'll increase magic damage taken by the greater of X or 25% to a maximum of 10X, and it'll increase healing taken by the greater of Y or 13% to a maximum of 10Y, whereas X is the value by which healing taken was increased, and Y is the value by which magic damage taken was increased. So it'll increase damage taken by more than it increases healing taken, which is kind of different than in vanilla. This will cause Amplify Magic to not be a net benefit when you're taking equal amounts of spell damage and healing. Mana Gems will no longer share a cooldown with anything but themselves if them sharing a cooldown of health stuns and what they share a cooldown with would turn out to pose a problem. New spell. This is one of those flask-enabling spells I was talking about. Incantation of Enigmatic Insight, which corresponds to Flask of Enigmatic Insight, formerly called Flask of Distilled Wisdom. The Tome of the Incantation of Enigmatic Insight drops from a Rajat Summoner. By the way, the Runes of Andorhal are now an instance 10-man raid, and not an open world raid, an instance one. The terrain surrounding the Runes of Andorhal is being modified accordingly. So, Arcane School, 1 rank, learned from the tome that drops from a Rajat Summoner. Requires 100% of base mana to cast. Requires a new Regan that has a base cost of 1 gold. Regan spenders, I haven't decided what it'll be called yet. 2-hour cast time. 2-hour cooldown. 10-second cast time. Description. Creates an altar in front of you that stands for 5 minutes. If you and 39 other level 60 players in your group all click on the altar, you'll begin the Incantation of Enigmatic Insight. After 30 consecutive seconds of participation from all 40 people, the altar will glow. This will cause all in your group who touch the altar afterwards to be able to benefit from a Flask of Enigmatic Insight for 2 hours, the enabling of which persists through death and cannot be dispelled. This spell overwrites similar effects and will end early if anybody leaves your group. Notes: similar effects means all other Flask enabling spells. The 30 seconds of participation counts as channeling and can be interrupted, so make sure there ain't any enemies around when you cast this. This and similar spells, such as Incantation of Chromatic Resistance, cause players to only use flasks in 40-man raids, World PvP, and Alterac Valley pre-mades. Do note that I completely changed the PvP ranking system, so don't worry about pre-mades versus pugs anymore. I also changed how Battleground Ks work. A lot, with very heavy-handed restrictions. Very heavy-handed restrictions. Imposed by game mechanics, mostly. And also, hopefully by game masters, if I actually manage to make that happen. This will wear off... This incantation, as well as all other Flask enabling spells, will wear off early if you leave in Battlegrounds, so don't try cheating at Battlegrounds. Another new spell, Incantation of Chromatic Resistance, which corresponds to the Flask of Chromatic Resistance that nobody cares about. It works just like the Incantation of Enigmatic Insight, except it only works for the Flask of Chromatic Resistance. Moving on. Arcane talent changes. The threat reduction of Arcane Subtlety will be lowered from 20% per rank, that is 20/40%, to 15% per rank, that is 15/30%. In order to prevent Arcane Mages from being able to deal too much damage per threat, in theory, what of the Arcane Mind buff, more on that below. Arcane Subtlety, instead of granting you spell resistance penetration, will reduce the mana cost of your arcane spells by 1/2%, that is 1% at rank 1, 2% at rank 2, making this essential rating talent be useful in solo play and PvP as well. Arcane Focus will grant 2/3/4/5/6% arcane spell hit chance, down from 2% per rank, because they redesigned Arcane Mind and Presence of Mind around this being nerfed back when I had a better reason to nerf this design. Though I could turn this into the 3-pointer that gets 2% per rank and make it a new 2-point talent to go next to it, but only if I didn't mind buffing Arcane Mages by doing so. Magic absorption resistance soul bonus will be equal to number that I don't feel like saying with my mouth per character level, rounded up instead of 2 per character level, period. Excuse me, instead of 2 total per talent rank, and its mana refund is equal to 20% per rank if the hostile spell's mana cost instead of 1% of your maximum mana per rank. If it doesn't cost mana, then it does not give you mana if you absorb it. So the resistance soul bonus will be equal to 20 at rank 5 if you are at level 60. If you're at level 30, that'll be 10 at rank 5. If you're at level 15, that'll be 5 resistance soul at rank 5, etc. This will cause magic absorption resistance soul bonus to feel more significant, at least at high levels, and it'll scale with level because the resistance does not scale with level, and I do not want the talent to be far better at low levels than at high levels. And the mana game change prevents you from basically having infinite mana if a ton of low-level mobs are trying to cast weak spells on you. You would know exactly what I'm talking about if you made a mage to AoE farm Mordon or other such dungeons in Vanilla Classic, which you probably did. Because most people did this shit because they kind of had to make money. That or they bought gold. And there are actually very, very, very many people who did that in Vanilla Classic. You have no fucking idea. Except half of you do because half of you bought gold. Anyway, moving on. Oh, by the way, you're not going to have to buy gold in this game because it'll be not profitable for gold sellers to sell gold because it'll be too costly for them to get caught. But more in a different video. More on that in a different video. Arcane Concentration will no longer have an eternal cooldown because it does not need to have one. That's a clear casting proc. Magic Attunement is improved damage / amplify magic will be removed from the game because it is overpowered. The talent, not the spells. New talent to replace Magic Attunement. Improved Blink. Reduces the cooldown of Blink by 1 second at rank 1, 2 seconds at rank 2. Notes, Magic Attunement does not always feel good to have if somebody else in your group or raid has it. Also, it was overpowered. This talent, Improved Blink, could be replaced with a completely different talent with the same cost, so long as it abides by the following rules. Number 1, it is not a talent that you wouldn't want to have when someone else in the group has it, as opposed to when that ain't the case. Number 2, if it is essential for PvP, it must also be useful for raiding, or possibly essential or optionally essential for raiding. Number 3, if it's essential for raiding, it must also be useful in PvP, or optionally essential for PvP. Number 4, the talent must not be useless in PvP. Number 5, if it is essential for raiding, it must not be useless for most solo play. Moving on. Consuming Presence of Mind. Due to the changes made to Arcane Mind and Arcane Instability, consuming Presence of Mind with an offensive fire spell will increase the spell damage / healing of yourself and all raid members within 40 yards by character level divided by 2.4 for 15 seconds. Does not stack, only the biggest one applies. Duration of pressures of both are equal. This and Arcane Instability will serve to get an Arcane Mage invited to raids. Character level divided by 2.4 means plus 25 spell damage / healing at level 60, by the way. Consuming Presence of Mind with an offensive frost spell will increase the spell crit of yourself and all raid members within 40 yards by 2% for 20 seconds. Does not stack. This and Arcane Instability will serve to get an Arcane Frost Mage also invited to raids. Arcane Mind will cause you to, whenever you deal damage with Arcane Missiles, increase the damage dealt by each subsequent missile by 0.8 / 1.6 / 2.4 / 3.2 / 4% of your int as of when the buff is applied or refreshed. Lasting for 10 seconds and stacking up to 5 times. But performing a killing blow of any sort will consume all stacks of Arcane Mind to grant you mana equal to 8 / 16 / 24 / 32 / 40% of your int per stack. This damage boost completely ignores the spell damage coefficient. So at rank 5 of the talent and so at rank 5 of Arcane Mind and 5 stacks of Arcane Mind, each particular missile, each damage value dealt by Arcane Missile will deal extra damage equal to 20% of your intellect. And when dispelled, even a single dispel, such as rank 1 of Purge or Dispel Magic, will be capable of removing all stacks of Arcane Mind at once if that buff is targeted by the dispel. Arcane Mind will not buff the Arcane Missile that procs it, but it will affect other Arcane Missiles in the same spellcast and in different spellcasts of Arcane Missiles. This talent, in conjunction with the arcane instability buff, will enable deep arcane mages to spam arcane spells instead of spamming fire or frost spells to deal damage. These damage bonus will start out low and ramp up over 5 seconds for the sake of PvP balance. Hard casting arcane missiles in PvP ain't easy. This part is actually pretty tentative. I might change how it ramps up, or make it not ramp up at all, possibly. I haven't gotten too much into PvP bounce yet. The huge buff to arcane missiles will be what gets deep arcane mages invited to raids when they don't want to spam fire or frost spells. But I say I haven't gotten much into PvP balance yet. All the PvP balance thus far is just theory. I haven't really thought. I've only put so much on to the PvP changes concerning class talents and class spells, that is. Anyway, the huge buff to arcane missiles will be what gets deep arcane mages invited to raids when they don't want to spam fire or frost spells, and thus be a fire mage with 31 points in arcane, or frost mage with 31 points in arcane, instead of the proper arcane mage. So basically, you're going to spam arcane missiles instead of fire or frost spells, and then you're going to spend your Presence of Mind procs on Power Blast or Frostball. Anyway, more on that in a bit. The mana gain part from Arcane Mind encourages arcane mages to not chain pull when they are in groups. I might have the effect of each stack of Arcane Mind and increase the maximum stacks to 10. I have not decided yet. The mana gain is intended to... the mana gain was designed around having up to 10 stacks of up to 4% of your int per rank per stack, so I might have to nerf it. I'm not sure yet. Arcane Instability will also cause your Arcane Missiles and Arcane Explosion to have a 2/4/6% chance upon dealing arcane damage to grant you Presence of Mind for free, which will not trigger or abide by its cooldown. If Presence of Mind is already active, however, then it'll instead increase the spell damage of your next spell cast by 3 times your character level for 10 seconds. Stack it up to 5 times and all being consumed by the same spell cast. So that's up to plus 900 spell damage. Design note, the spell damage is deliberately weaker than the Presence of Mind proc. Design note, making a proc up of arcane notes. The spell damage increase, yada, etc. So yeah, making a proc of arcane explosions hits might have been a bad idea. Do note the hard cap of 6 targets per AoE. But it does let arcane mages throw in an instant flame strike in between their arcane explosions. This will be part of why arcane mages get invited to raids, and it'll also give them a second button to push in raids, Power Blast or Fireball. So basically, the arcane mage rotation will be this. You spam arcane missiles until you get a Presence of Mind proc, then you cast Power Blast or Fireball. The procs happen randomly, so it's not going to be completely brain dead, at least. I might do more to complicate rotations later, but only if I feel more confident about changing class stuff that much, to make it deviate that much from vanilla. I don't want to turn it into Wrath quite, but... Well, actually, I don't want to copy Wrath by just giving them all the Wrath abilities and shit like that, but, well... I want it to feel more like vanilla than a Wrath. But then, I could also just add more spells and shit. But going in a different direction with the spells than Wrath did. Aside from making their rotation not be simple. Anyway, moving on. Ignite will produce a new debuff of every application without affecting the old debuff. By the way, I did not No, actually, I did kind of rehearse this video, but only kind of. The only rehearsing I really did is... I made a script for the introduction to the video, and then I tried recording the video, and I got like 24 minutes into it, and then I just decided, fuck it, I'm just going to re-record the video because I fucked up too much during the recording. So anyway, fire talent changes. Ignite will produce a new debuff with every application without affecting the old debuff. Improved Scorch will only increase the damage dealt by Scorch by 3/7/10% without doing anything else to the spell Scorch. The debuff was moved elsewhere. Critical Mass will also give your... Well, in addition to its current effects... In addition to the vanilla effects of Critical Mass to talent, Critical Mass will also give your offensive fire spells a chance upon spell cast to apply debuff called, I haven't decided what it's called yet. That will reduce fire resistance by 1/3 of your character level, increase all fire damage taken by 3% per stack, and increase the damage taken from all dots by 2% per stack, to a maximum of character level fire resistance reduction, so 60 at level 60, 9% fire damage vulnerability, and 6% extra damage taken from all dots, but critical mass will lose a stack every 10 seconds. At 11 stacks, critical mass will burn out, removing all stacks of the debuff and rendering the foe immune to critical mass's debuffs for 30 seconds. Design note, max benefit at 3 stacks, not 11. Design note, while a single fire mage could get critical mass to its 3 stacks and keep it there by itself, it would take an average of 70 entire seconds for him to get it to 3 stacks by spamming Scorch, while having 2 fire mages would mean that it'll usually hit 3 stacks in an average of less than 15 seconds. So this is how the fire mage rotation is going to work out in 40 mans. Well, in raids, period. First, your 2 fire mages are going to spam Scorch to get critical mass to like 3 or 4 stacks. They're going to spam Scorch to get critical mass to 4 stacks. Then they're going to spam Fireball until either A, critical mass hits 3 stacks, or B, critical mass hits like 8 or 9 stacks. Then if it hits 3 stacks again, they'll spam Scorch until 4 stacks. And if it hits 8 or 9 stacks, they'll start spamming Pyroblast instead of Fireball to make sure that critical mass does not hit 11 stacks. Now, what are its proc chances, you might ask? I added a new system to the game called Spell Procs per minute. Basically, for each half second of cast time the spell has, base cast time that is, the spell will have a 1/120th chance per spell proc per minute to proc an SPPM effect. So in the case of Scorch, that is a 1/40th chance to proc an SPPM effect. However, is 4 SPPM. So 1 divided by 120 times 3. That's a 1 SPPM chance for 1.5 second spell cast, but it's 4 SPPM, so times 4, and then plus 10%. Scorch will have at rank 5 of critical mass. Scorch will have a 20% chance to proc critical mass. Fireball, however, will have a 1 divided by 120 times 7 times 4 plus 0.1. Fireball will have a 1/3 chance to proc critical mass. And then Pyroblast will have a 1 divided by 120. Remember, base cast time, not actual cast time. 1 divided by 120 times 6 times 4. Wait, that doesn't seem right. 1 divided by 120 times 12 times 4 plus 0.1. And then Pyroblast will have a 1/2 chance to proc critical mass. 50%. So yeah, you're going to have to coordinate. You're going to have to make sure the AR Fire Mage is actually doing his fucking job in order to take full advantage of critical mass. Because if you don't, then you're going to deal a lot less fire damage because critical mass will fall off and the foe will be immune to it for 30 seconds. And regulators will actually want to bring you because not only does it make the foe take more fire damage and reduces its fire resistance, but it'll also make the foe take more damage from all dots. And do also note that I'm adding a new elixir to the game called Major Elixir of Searing Flames. This will cause your spells to ignore up to 60 points, if I recall correctly, of your opposed fire resistance. This, in addition to critical mass, and if I recall correctly, something else, will reduce your opponent's fire resistance by quite a lot. Furthermore, all enemies, except for fire elementals proper, so not flame wakers, for example, are going to have a hard maximum fire resistance of what it takes to resist half of fire spells casted against you. So that's 215, if I recall correctly, for level 63 mobs. Off the top of my head, actually, I'm pretty sure it's a slightly different number, but it's 200 at level 60. A little bit higher for level 63. 209, is it? I'm pretty sure it might be 209. Anyways, I'd have to actually scroll up to find out. This seed will, again, will serve to get 2 deep fire mages invited to raids and make their damage rotation speed less boring. Its tooltip will state, yada, etc. The talents tooltip will state this. Moving on. Firepower will also grant you X slash... Oh, this is the other thing. Now I remember. Firepower will also grant you X slash 2X slash 3X slash 4X slash 5X fire resistance penetration. For all of your fire spells, of course. Well, for all fire damage out, period. Whereas X equals character level times 0.116 repeating. Totals to 35 at level 16, rank 5. This will make it easier for fire mages to perform well in Blackrock Mountain and in Inixia's Lair. Improved Frostbolt will also decrease the casting time. Yeah, Frost talent changes now. Improved Frostbolt will also... I'm just going to say this over again. Improved Frostbolt will also decrease the casting time of Frostball by 1/10 of a second per rank. And a talent will be renamed to something else. I haven't decided what yet. Permafrost will also increase the duration of Frost Power, normally 6 seconds, by 1 second per rank. The locations in the talent tree of Permafrost and Frostbite will be swapped. Improved Frost level will no longer be a prerequisite for Shatter, and its cooldown. An improved Frost level, its cooldown reduction will be increased to 3 seconds per rank. This was done because, after making all of their essential PvP talents into their standard rating spec, Frost mages did not have many optional PvP talents left over, so I had to do this and make new talents for them. Shatter's talent tree location will be moved 1 space to the right. That is a horizontal movement. It's still a, it is 20 points, right? 20 points. Still a 15-point talent. I didn't remember off the top of my head. Frostbite, improved... By the way, those are the vanilla talent trees I'm looking at, not the new ones. Frostbite, improved Blizzard, and Shatter will be prerequisites for Winter's Chill, ensuring that raiding Frost mages will not have to respec to get their essential PvP talents. By the way, I have made mock talent trees for all the classes, but the only mock talent tree that I actually kept a picture of is the one for enhancement enchantments. All the other mock talent trees are just mental. But the one for enhanced enchantments, it's actually in the form of a picture. Anyway, moving on. This will ensure that Frost mages will not have to respec in order to get their essential PvP talents. You know, I don't even remember why I wrote that part. Oh, raiding Frost mages. Ensuring that raiding Frost mages won't have to respec for yada etc. Yeah. Now I remember why I wrote it. Ugh. Memory span is so short when I'm making videos because I'm just doing everything as automatically as possible so that I don't exhaust myself. Not putting too much thought into what I'm saying. Improved Blizzard's movement speed slow will be reduced from 30/50/65% to 30/45/55% as getting rid of spell cleave metagame once and for all and getting rid of soul dungeon AoE farming. Outside of low dungeons that the mage drastically out levels. Such as a level 65, such as a level 60 guy in like Shadowfang Keep or some shit. Anyway, Arctic Reach will also increase the range of Frostball by 10% per rank. New talent, improved Ice Block. Requires 20 points of Frost talents. Requires 1 point of Frost and Ice Block. 4-point talent. Passive. Increases the duration of Ice Block by 2 seconds per rank and decreases Ice Block's cooldown by 30 seconds per rank. This talent was given to Frost mages because, after making all their essential PvP talents, I already explained that. This talent can be replaced with a completely different talent, so long as it is a talent that is useful for PvP without being essential for PvP or raiding. I might double the cooldown reduction. I'm not sure yet. Excuse me. I might multiply the cooldown reduction by 1.5, not double it. New talent, Bone Chill. Requires 10 points in Frost talents, tentatively. 5-point talent, tentatively. Passive. Causes all of your Frost spells to ignore up to X/2X, 3X/4X/5X of your opponent's Frost resistance. X equals character level divided by 7.5. So 60 divided by 7.5 times 5 equals 40 Frost resistance penetration at level 60. And rank 5 of the talent. This will use the icon that Frostbite had, and Frostbite itself will get a different icon. This talent was given to Frost mages because I already explained it. This talent could be replaced with a completely different talent so long as it is a talent that is useful for PvP without being essential for PvP or raiding. New talent, Resilient Frost. Requires 25 points in Frost talent, tentatively. 2-point talent, Passive. Grants your Frost spells an additional 8% at rank 1, 15% chance at rank 2 to resist to spell effects. Notes, this talent was given to Frost Mages because, after making all of their essential PvP talents until I already explained it. This and the other 2 new Frost talents are intended to be useful in PvP without being essential for PvP. This talent could be replaced with a completely different talent, so long as it is a talent that is useful for PvP without being essential for PvP or raiding. And finally, Winter's Chill will grant 1% less Frost spell crit to attack its per stack, but it will also increase the damage taken from all spells by 1% per stack, serving to get a Deep Frost Mage invited to 40-man raids. Over something like a deep... Well, I'm planning to make Demon Blocks deal the most damage for personal damage as a caster. But anyway, I'll get to that in a different video. This debuff is going to make sure that a Frost Mage gets invited to 40-man raids. 1 Deep Frost Mage per 40-man. Just like 1 Arcane Frost Mage per 40-man, and 1 Arcane Fire Mage per 40-man, and 2 Fire Mages per 40-man. 2 Deep Fire Mages per 40-man. And that's all I got for mages. Thanks for watching.